Alrighty, we watched Kase-san and Morning Glories, or Asegao to Kase-san. I think that's the Morning Glories one. And it was, eh.
Was fine.
I was thinking back to a post I wrote 12 years ago on my anime blog. No, yeah, 12 years.
Damn.
Which was called Yuri Fan.
Half my age.
Yeah, it was called Yuri Fan, but not a Yuri fan, where I was basically complaining about the fact that Yuri fans will, like, celebrate basically anything that has Yuri in it as, like, god tier. And I'm a huge Yuri fan. I love the genre. I inherently want to see girls in relationships. But over time, I've really just kind of grown... I've grown, like... I don't know, bored with it because so many Yuri stories are just exactly the same. And they always are presented, especially the anime adaptations, much like what I talked about with Bloom Into You, where it always has to be like so sappy and melodramatic and like piano melody music and slow, contemplative slice of life style. And I feel like it's just, I don't know, reductive of like what is even a lesbian, you know? Like,
I mean, especially in this show where it's like there's the butch one and there's the girly one.
They very gender coded, and like it's not that bothers me, it's just boring. It's boring that one of them is just, this is the boyish one and this is the girlish one. Like, one's got a room that's literally all blue and full of tracksuits, and like she does gym stuff and she's like surly. And the other one's mega girly and she's got phone straps and fucking colors all over her room and mostly pink, and like she's very sensitive. And it's like, can we not move beyond that? Can't we have more dynamic characters? Because like that's not the lesbian experience. It's not just a girl who's kind of like a guy and a girl who's really girly but happens to like girls get together. It could be anything. Mm-hmm. And like, they're high school seniors.
I mean, even if there is more of like a tomboyish one, they're not just like a trope, which is how you see a lot of them be handled. And it's like all your personality traits come back to the fact that you're the sensitive girly one. You enjoy these aspects. I don't know. Right. It felt very like
trite.
Yeah.
That's the word I would use. Like it's a high school romance that's very like, it's cutesy, it's slow, it doesn't really have any original ideas. It's just like, I could see how some people, regardless of the fact that it's Yuri, some people will like this just for the tone and the feel of it. But like, it's 50 minutes long. All that really happens is, like, I would say it's broken sort of into segments, almost chapters, where, the early part is like they've recently hooked up, they're a little awkward, the one girl's not fully prepared for, like, the sexuality of their relationship or seeing the other girl naked, and they have a little drama over the fact that the one girl, like, there's like a misunderstanding where the one girl doesn't want to go into the bath and see the other girl because she's embarrassed, but the other girl thinks that she, has a problem with her. It was kind of unreasonable what she thought was the case. It's like, you must not know this girl that well if you thought that she felt this way.
They use the excuse of kind of like, oh, it happened before. I've had this happen before, so you must...
Sure.
You must feel this way. I don't know, like...
I know every time I complain about something like this, people are like, but they're teenagers. They don't read that deeply into things.
The resolution of that was really cheesy because obviously, like, if she's saying that in the past I've had people push me away because they're jealous of my body, and then, like, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. Everything is better now. It's like, it would have been... nicer.
Even though the reality is that she was jealous of her body. That was the problem.
Yeah.
Was that she saw how nice her body was and felt bad that she didn't look as good.
I mean, I think it's interesting that they, like, at least touched upon those things, but, like, it would have been better to see more of, like, them working through
Yeah,
that than
she
just the melodrama.
She's just
and
like, oh, it was a misunderstanding. Okay,
and then they go and play in the ocean.
There's no
together.
resolution of those feelings that she had.
There's no
she doesn't reassure
them.
her, hey,
yeah.
I think you're cute. I like the way you look. I would like to. It's just like, oh, now that the misunderstanding's cleared up, it's fine.
You know, on the bright side, there was a really nice side boob shot.
Yeah.
So.
In the end, the one girl, Kase-san, is going to Tokyo U. If the other girl's, like, you know, afraid of what this will mean for their relationship, there's some melodrama, and then in the end she decides to go with her, which I like. I like that it ends on a high note and the girl's actually willing to, you know, put herself...
Yeah,
there was no reason for her not to do it, so why wouldn't she have even come to that conclusion earlier?
I was happy that they kind of gave that character, like, a little bit of development and have her kind of do some of her own problem solving. And I like the resolution of her just deciding that, like, hey, I can go to college in Tokyo if this is what your dream is. I don't want to...
I don't know why that wasn't her first thought.
I mean, I don't know.
There was nothing that... It would have been better and more complex if she had a reason to stay here. Like, if she couldn't just go to Tokyo because she has to help out with the family store, or, like, she's interested in taking this other track that has its best school out here, and then she has to, like, oh, well, we can't both follow our dreams and have it all work out, so which one of us is going to have to sacrifice something? But, I mean, again, this is more going for cutesy, nice, you know, soft melodrama that's not really asking any hard questions or putting these two under any strain, you know, like any legitimate strain in their relationship that would make it interesting. You know, like... And this is another... I hate when I have to, like, use the excuse of, like, I feel old when I watch shows, but it's like, I look at my own life experiences, and I think about, like, when I moved in with you, and it's like, you lived with your family in Rochester, and I'm like, I'm gonna take you away from your home, and it's like, every time we want to move again, and, like, a legitimate question is, like, what works for both of us? Like, there's things at stake for us if we move to this place versus that place.
I
can't see my family, or
give or take,
and like,
and you work through it together.
Right, and there was just
usually discussion before you just, oh, I'm coming with you.
Right. So, I mean, and we can imagine that all those things do happen off screen, but, like, that is the interesting part. That's the part I want to watch a show about.
That didn't happen off screen because the other girl was surprised that she had changed her mind.
No, like, I mean, like, after, because, you know, she just jumps on the train with her, but it doesn't mean that she has now moved to Tokyo. She just came with her, and assumably from here on, they'll have to make a lot of decisions and talk to a bunch of people. You know, her parents are going to have to work something out with her, but, like, that would have been the interesting part to me, you know, is all the real drama. Not the fake melodrama.
All of the real drama that comes with a lesbian relationship, not the manufactured bullshit that is put in all of these shows.
It made me think about, you haven't seen this movie, but the movie Dokusei from 2 years ago, which was a yaoi romance movie that had all of the things I'm talking about, where it had real drama, real difficulties in the relationship. The characters really meant something to each other. They were complex people. There was complex emotions. The animation conveyed a lot of emotion. And, like, this looks fine. Like, it looks good. It's got good color design, good backgrounds, you know, insofar as they tried.
They're nice watercolor tones. The backgrounds are pleasing.
The animations are cutesy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and I'm gonna say something that people are gonna ask me for proof about, but I'm not making a whole edited video about this. Ripped off K-On! A bunch. Straight up. There are scenes that are timed and executed exactly the same as K-On! Moments, and look, that's fine. I love K-On! I'm happy to see animators taking influence from K-On!, but I've already seen these things. This style, like, there's a moment really early in the episode where Kase calls her and she's like, whoa, 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 like throwing her phone up, and then she catches it and then answers. And, like, it's just like the scene from episode 1 of K-On! Where she does the same thing with her alarm. Her phone keeps slipping out of her hand. And, like, there's another part where she's, like, leaned over... She's talking over her desk at her friend, and they're going back and forth, and the timing of it is exactly the same as one of the scenes of Yui talking to Nodoka in K-On! So, like, And it's not that it's like traced or anything. It's just obviously inspired by. But like when I see that, it makes me think, okay, that's cool, referencing K-On!, but I'm not seeing anything original or new that would make me like, when you watch K-On! And it's like, oh my god, they had so many inventive little animated segments, and Naoko Yamada is really creative and original, and like the stuff that not that she was in charge of every piece of animation or anything, but you see it in her other work and in Kyoto Animation's other work. So, it just felt like this is not wowing me visually when so much of it owes so much debt to something else. Anything else you want to say about it while I take a long drink?
There was one scene where the two girls were at a bus station, and then there's like this weird like freeze frame of animation where you can hear the music, and they're just like staring at each other for like 3 seconds before she runs over.
That was a lot more than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
That was like 45 seconds, because I was like, what is this, Eva? Like, what's going on? It's like sitting on the screen.
I thought that the stream like had froze. I don't know. I don't know why they had to make it so long. There was another like weird scene where the gardener girl, what's her name?
I don't know.
The blonde girl, like she was having kind of like a moment of self-doubt, and there's like this weird like visualization of her subconscious.
Yeah.
And it just like
that was the most like unique animation moment. That was the only part where I was like,
where
okay.
It had the girls like floating around like in water, and I like it was interesting to look at, but I don't know, I didn't think it was particularly interesting.
I mean, it's kind of like the visuals are like almost outperforming the scenes that they're attached to.
Yeah.
Like, particularly that long silence just seemed like I didn't get any more meaning out of it from how long it was. Like in Eva, while, you can have your opinion on whether you think Shinji holding Kaoru for a long time is more cost-cutting or more, for real reasons, but like, that scene does add something to it. That he's trying to make a decision between whether or not he's going to kill this guy who he literally loves. He's going to kill him. And, like, he has to contemplate it for a long fucking time. And it gives you time to put yourself in the headspace of the character and consider all that's going through their head. In this moment, it's just like, there's nothing, really. It's just, like, they're staring at each other for a long time before she runs up to kiss her, and it just seems like, wouldn't that be really awkward in real life? Like, y'all just staring at each other for this long, not saying anything? One of y'all gonna speak up? Maybe? Why is this going for so long? I don't know. I think they were just trying to do something artsy, but it didn't mean anything extra to me.
I mean, their relationship didn't really mean anything.
That's the thing. It didn't really stand for anything. It was just kind of a cutesy little Yuri romance thing, and like, frankly, I would rather watch Sono Hanabira ni Kuchizukeo because at least they fuck. It's like the same thing as this, except they fuck because it's a hentai. But like, it has even better animation and character art. And like, if you're just going to watch two girls be cute together, you might as well watch them fuck. I found myself thinking throughout this, like, I would love an adaptation of like Murcielago, which is a manga about this, like, psychotic, murdering, insane person who just happens to be a lesbian and who just, like, fucks girls randomly all the time. And, like, it's pretty ridiculous and smutty, and, she, like, shoves a fucking cell phone up a girl's hooch in the first, like, 10 pages. But, like, I just want more, not necessarily literally like that, but just, like, Yuri that isn't this same cutesy low tempo. And like, I know that there are, like, I know that when I say something like what kind of Yuri I want, there's gonna be people who are like, who cares what a straight man cares what Yuri he wants. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I know for a fact, because I've heard them say so, that there are lesbian women who feel the same way I do about this. I've heard tons of lesbian women talk about how they really don't like this particular brand of Yuri because they see it as patronizing. I also know that there are tons of guys who love this kind of Yuri because they want to be absorbed in a soft fantasy of cute girls with no guys, with no threat.
Using a sexuality to kind of pander to a specific audience.
Mm-hmm.
Not really taking into account how a relationship realistically should be portrayed in media.
They're using the sexuality as a tone setter.
Yeah.
They're using it not as, we're going to tell a story about a relationship between two women. They're saying, like, we want to tell this kind of story that is best told by a relationship between two women.
Which, yeah, I would just like to see different stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't get anything out of seeing Yuri with this tone. I thought the show was cute. I liked the watercolor aesthetic of it. There was some cute moments between the two girls, and, like, I do think there was a little bit of character development, and I liked that she had, like, a friend who she could kind of confide in and talk about the relationship with, and it was kind of cool to have that, but, I don't know, I didn't really get anything out of the show.
I'll tell you, I definitely came down harder on this than I would have had I not gotten so jaded to this type of Yuri, because, like, I probably would have given this, like, either a strong 6 or a 7 if I was watching it, you know, years ago, back when I was, like, if I had watched this at a time, like, when I was really into Yuri and really into soft, cute girl shows, I think I would have really enjoyed it. But, like, I've read so much Yuri manga that is literally this. That's just the same thing. And I know this one was really popular, and it probably was an influence on a lot of those other manga I've read. But, like, I had read more like that even before this one existed, you know?
How old is this, the source material?
I don't think it's more than a decade old. I don't know how old it is exactly. But, like, I would much rather have gotten an adaptation of, say, Girlfriends, which is a 5-volume manga that has a similar tone to this and kind of a similar style, but the girls have less trite personalities. It really goes in depth on their relationship and fleshes it out over the course of 5 volumes. You see everything from beginning to, you know, to probably post-graduation. Like, it's like, if you're gonna do this type of story, I want the one that goes all the way and touches all the boxes. And having read that one, everything else is gonna look unimpressive by comparison, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's like, either give me the best or give me something new. That's really what I want. So ultimately, I felt like a 5 out of 10 on this, but
yeah, I would give it a 6.
Like, sorry, Yuri fans. I know you don't want to listen to somebody fucking hate on your shit, but it is what it is, dog. For me, it's always fun to have an opinion, even if it's negative. So I had fun having this opinion with you all today. Thanks for watching.
You've been drinking straight salt the past 24 hours.
And I'll see you in the next one. Alrighty, we just got done watching Modao Zushi, which somehow translates to The Master of Demonic Cultivation. And it was really good and super interesting. I would say that this show, like, it's basically a Chinese wushu, crazy action adventure? I don't know about adventure.
I mean, I'd say, like, the middle part is kind of like that.
It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning...
Also yaoi bait.
Yes, it is a yaoi bait show. It's labeled as boys love, and I don't know if that's going to come later. It definitely is, like, very suggestive of that, but, like, it's not that important to the story.
You know, it's China. I don't know how, like, pro-gay they are over there.
I mean,
but I imagine that just watching this will bring your social score down. Like,
all the men are extremely beautiful, and there's a lot of very obvious flirting. Like, the two main guys, like, they couldn't be shipping them harder if they tried. You know, so, like, if you watch this for BL, you will be satisfied, I would say. But it's not, like, it's not an outright BL show. But it is a lot of things, because early on, it's sort of I would call it like a horror thriller at first. Like an action horror thriller. And then it becomes something totally different. And the structure of this show is very similar to that
It's like
of
Avatar: The Last Airbender mixed with Game of Thrones.
There's a huge Game of Thrones feel later into it, especially. It gets extremely violent and crazy. You'll see some like berserk level crazy violent shit in this show. But like I would say that it's similarly structured to Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, where it's a 15 episode series. By the way, this is a Chinese I mean, it's mostly Chinese. It seems like I don't know if there's any Japanese staff even involved in it. It's listed on my anime list because it's one of those like Howliners productions, I guess. I don't even know. I don't know how this is considered anime exactly, but like all the Chinese stuff keeps getting listed on Mal, so I'm including it in Finish or Fail. But like, it's first of all gorgeous.
The backgrounds like are incrable.
They
I've never seen anything like this in like a
TV show.
TV show. Is this a net animation or was it on TV?
I don't even know. I don't know how these Chinese ones work. They're always listed as ONAs on Mal.
Are like odd.
Well, that's the other thing is that there's 15 episodes, but the first 2 are 35 minutes long, and they're sort of like short films almost. But like the first 2 set up this story about this this guy who, like at the very beginning, there's some like kid basically sacrifices himself, his own body, to house the spirit of the master of the dark arts, basically the master of demonic cultivation, as they call magic, basically in this world, and it's sort of like a priest magic kind of thing. You know, like they fight demons, I guess. But there's all these different clans of cultivators, and basically most of the show is more about the disputes between the clans than it is about them fighting zombies and shit, which is what they are there to do, ostensibly. But anyways,
I feel like the zombie problem probably like happened because this guy was able to cultivate the dark arts.
I mean, there were already zombies and shit, though.
There was already ghosts.
Like, the purpose of cultivation is to fight angry spirits and, like, evil demons and shit. But, like, and there are certain areas that are really, like, basically there are parts of the world that are really fucked and that you can't really go to because there's so many, like, demons and shit and, like, so much dark energy. Mm-hmm. And so these guys, when that stuff, like, emerges into society, they deal with it, or they try to slowly, like, demonize these areas. But, like, again, because the cultivator clans, there's sort of a power struggle going on between them that is, I guess, more pertinent than actually stopping demons and shit. But, like, at the start of the show, the main character, who is the master of demonic cultivation, like, is summoned into this body. This kid has sacrificed himself. He's dead. His body has been given over. Yeah, we never get to
see this kid in the anime.
No. But he, like, basically the reason he did it is because he lives with, like, his bitch aunt and her son who just, like, bully and abuse him all the time. So he in order to get revenge, he summons this guy, and basically, in order for him to inhabit that body, he has to kill the 3 people who this kid wanted dead. So the first episode is mostly this kind of really interesting horror scenario, but like where it's the most interesting part is that the master of demonic cultivation himself is a very like happy-go-lucky trickster kind of guy. And like in order to not be recognized and like keep himself on the down low, he just acts like a fucking moron. Like, he just likes to pretend that he's literally retarded.
I mean, I think the person that he's inhabiting the body of was, like, you know, insane. Mm. And they, like, that's kind of the excuse that he uses, and people, like, because when he first inhabits the body, they, like, realize that he's behaving differently, but they just, like, write it off as, like, he's crazy.
Oh, yeah, he was crazy anyways. But, like, even back before he was dead, we will learn that he was a huge prankster. He was always
always getting into trouble.
Yeah.
Breaking the commandments.
He's like a class clown kind of guy, even though he was also a really powerful cultivator. Like, he was good at magic. Yeah. So basically he just likes to fuck around and mess with people. But like, so he he inhabits this body. He, the first episode's mostly about him, like, killing those 3 people and, like, the situation evolving and teaching us about the world and characters. And it's really great. The first episode is fantastic. It's tonally really interesting. Like, there's comedy and stuff slipped in because of the way that the guy acts. But, like, the situations are serious, So there's, like, a weird kind of tone shifting that's always going on. And, like, early on into watching this show, a lot of it, for me, was just coming to grips with how fucking Chinese it is. Because I don't know shit about China. I don't know anything about the culture. I don't know anything about the language, which sounds totally alien to me.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like every word is 1 syllable long, or just that syllables are separated in words. I don't know. It's weird to listen to. And, like, when you're watching something that kind of looks like anime...
Yeah, it looks familiar, but it's, like, totally drawing on all these different types of culture, and...
It's a similar...
And them not speaking Japanese is, like, wow. Like,
it's
you have to just look at the subs the whole time.
Feeling to watching Avatar... Because, like, when I first saw Avatar The Last Airbender, it was really jarring to me at first, because, like... On the one hand, you can see all this anime influence, but the animation style is very different, because even though it's, like, clearly paying homage to, like, Fooly Cooly and stuff as, like, a huge influence, it's like, more fluid, and there's a lot of concentration on mouth movement, and, like, that stuff looks weird with the anime aesthetic. This show is not as jarring, because it looks more anime.
I mean, but I'd also say that it definitely draws on Western animation, too, because there's, like, the scenes of the guy riding the donkey. It looks like a DreamWorks, like, animated
a little bit
style, and it's really interesting, because, like, the characters are more expressive than you would see in anime, or, like, express differently, but it's, like, with anime, like, character models, so it's, like, really interesting to see.
And then there's the fact that, like, the script... It's interesting, because the dialogue has a lot of, like, it has a lot of cleverness to it. Like, the characters are, by and large, kind of smart, and they're able to, like, pick up on a lot of nuances in the way that one another acts and call each other out on it. And, like, again, I don't know how much of this is just, like, how Chinese people communicate and how much is the way this show is written. Because I've only seen a few of these Chinese-produced anime, but most of them are a lot more anime-like. Like, most of them are just trying to do, like, generic anime tropes, but it's Chinese. This one is, like, deeply dyed in Chinese wushu cinema tradition. Like, it's got wire fu combat, where people are spinning around in robes and swinging swords around and, like, flying on swords and doing crazy Chinese magic spirituality shit.
It's fucking badass.
And then, like... You've got... So, like, the animation is really solid all throughout. But the backgrounds are crazy. And, like, it's obviously... Everything in the show looks digital, like, for sure. Like, nothing's hand-drawn. But, whereas anime will often use, like, clone stamp tools and shit to just, like, create the most basic just do enough. Enough to make the background look passable. But as a result, they always look the same. Like, every show has the same backgrounds, and you get really sick of seeing it. This show, it seems like they must have drawn the backgrounds at, like, 4 times the size of the resolution of the show, and then crammed it, like, just, like, downsized it in there. Because there's so much detail, it's insane.
Yeah, like, they look like paintings. Like, they're beautiful.
Every single one looks like a mural. Like, they seem... Because there'll just be so much going on where, like, it's all these, like, very wide angle shots where you see, like, a whole mountain range in the background, or, like, just, like...
And the camera will move, like, in interesting ways throughout these environments, too. Like, that's something you wouldn't see typically.
The CG is great.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, but at the same time, there is cheesy and cheap elements to it.
Like the fire effects.
Fire effects, and, like, there's certain effects where they clearly just took, like, either live action or, like, CG footage, and it doesn't even look bad. It's just a weird cost-cutting thing that you notice, but you're like, okay, that's hilarious that's there, but then, like, it'll show just background shots that are, like, heart-stopping, And then, like, the music is, like, very traditional Chinese folk music kind of style, but then the sound effects are like stock cheesy sound effects a lot of the time. So it's kind of a hodgepodge. I have no way of judging the voice acting because, again, the Chinese language, like,
I mean, a lot of like the characters from the same clans sound very similar. So if like you can't see their mouths moving, sometimes it's hard to tell who's speaking.
It seems like the Chinese language intonation is a really big part of it. Because there's so many words that sound exactly the same, you just say it a little bit differently. And so I could be, someone tell me if I'm correct in this at all, but it seems like it's more difficult to emote like through how you say words. Like instead it's more like the loudness. Like if characters want to be angry and aggressive, they just speak louder. But it's hard to be like, you have to kill that guy. Like you can't really talk like that if like how you say the word matters. So it'd be like Bo Chang Dong Dong Bang. Like, that's a terrible racist Chinese stereotype I just did. But like it's all the words are just like one syllable and I don't fucking know. It's like really hard for me to tell if the voice acting is good or not because it all sounds really weird to me.
I mean, it sounds better than that one movie we watched. We tried watching it with the Chinese dub on it.
Yeah,
but I think it might have just been because like the dub was by Netflix and.
What the hell was that movie? Shiki Oriori.
Yeah, Shiki Oriori had like that was not good. Just
No.
like the mixing was really bad. Like
the sound quality of the recording.
I
was
liked
bad
the
in
characters' voices. Like the main character had like a really fun
very
personality that
playful.
came through in his voice.
Yeah, and like for a while I couldn't get a good read on his voice, but then when he got more serious, it was clear that he could sound like a serious voice actor. So it's like, okay, it's not just that the Chinese language sounds weird; it's that this guy is making it sound weird because he's a weird character.
Yeah.
But like. Yeah, and as it goes, it gets more, it gets easier to follow, because the early part of this show, there's a lot of information going on, and again, I can't tell how much of this is stuff that is just, like, general Chinese folktale shit that, like, they would know. Because, like, I'm sure that for a Chinese audience, there's less new information being presented to you as an audience member. Like, more of it is kind of like when you watch, as a Japanese person, if you were to watch, like, a Shinsengumi anime. It's like, as a Japanese citizen, you probably know something about the Shinsengumi. So if it's a show about Shinsengumi fighting demons, then the only thing you have to learn about is the demon stuff. With this show, I don't know shit about anything that's going on. So it was just tons of information to try to take in and process. And then there's stuff like how everybody gets called like 5 different names depending on who they're talking to, because there's different honorifics and different, like, their names sound, it's not like Yu-chan and then Yu-san. It's like 5 totally different names that this person will have. So that gets confusing, and like trying to follow who's in what clan and all that shit.
They do color code all the characters.
Yeah, I think they did that partially just to make it so anybody could follow what the hell was going on. Like, it's really funny because the main guy, like, when he inhabits the body of the person who has summoned him, he looks exactly the same down to the same outfit as he did in the past, just for you as a viewer to follow.
Yeah.
But, like, so the first episode is like this horror thriller. The second episode is more of an action spectacle where we learn about some more of the clans and like we get a sense of this character's history, like who he was, like what his reputation is basically, and why he's trying to avoid people. But it's mostly just like people fighting, and it's really funny because everyone is kind of encouraged to be very proper. Like everyone is supposed to like obey the rules of conduct. But if someone shit talks somebody else, it is hands. Like, instantly. They're just beating, like, everyone is super aggressive and ready to fucking fight for any reason. And it's really funny. So, like, those first 2 episodes, it's like this fun, wild ride of wacky fighting and hijinks. Then we cut to the past, and we learn about this character's history. And for, like, a solid 5 episodes, it's just basically character building. It's like him and these other characters like hanging out, training to be better cultivators. And it's weird because you don't get a very good sense of how far along in their training are they, like how strong are they compared to an average person, like what exactly are they doing. And because it starts off with them training in this place that's like the cloud recesses, which is like, you know, where all the like the, I don't know, burgeoning strong cultivators go to train, I guess. We don't know much about like where these characters are actually from, because they've come here to train, but we have not seen their homeland yet for a while. So, like, for a few episodes, it's just, like, kind of them training in the cloud recesses, and much like with Showa Genroku, it's that feeling where at first you're thinking that we're just going to get backstory for a couple episodes. Then you slowly realize, oh, the rest of the season is just going to be the backstory. Like, it starts to sink in that this is just going to be backstory until the very end of the season. It's just explaining how we got to where we are at the start, which is even more understandable when you know the second season's coming out soon. So it's like, okay, you know, obviously there's going to be more of it. It's based on a novel series. I guess Chinese light novels, basically. I think it was a web novel, and like
yeah, because it had like advertisements for the app that it would be on.
The app is for the manhwa.
Oh.
So it's originally a web novel, and then there's a manhwa adaptation, and then there's also the anime adaptation that were like running concurrently. We have to talk about the ads.
The ads are great.
This is how I wish every ad was, because what this show will do is just. It doesn't do it all the time, especially not when things get more serious. But
yeah, it's like in some of the episodes, like when they would have a bumper, they'd have like a weird scene that's like repurposed for an advertisement.
They take a scene from the episode, but then they like redo it where it becomes an ad. So usually, like most of the advertising is for this. What was it called? It was like ice cream.
Blue cone.
Yeah, like an ice cream cone, like a mint flavored ice cream that has this motto, be simpler and you're much cuter. And it was really confusing because at the start, like in the early episodes, it's always at the very beginning, there'll be a part where he says, be simpler and you're much cuter. Let's see what's going to happen in this episode. And it says advertisement at the top, but I didn't know what the fuck it was talking about. And then I think episode 2 or 3 is the first one to have the full-blown mid-roll ad, where like halfway through where an ad would be, instead of going to a commercial break, it's just the characters in a scene selling the product, and it's fucking hilarious. And I was like, if every show did this, I would have no complaints about ads at all. Like, this is the funniest, best way to do ads. Instead of going to a commercial break, just put it in there, you know?
Yeah.
And they were fucking hilarious. So yeah, there's that going on. So that's another cultural thing that's like blasting your mind as you're watching this, you know. And then you're like, well, now I know how they afforded to have all this fucking art, you know, that looks incredible.
Those blue cones.
Those fucking blue cones. But yeah, so it starts this backstory arc, and it's kind of just like a happy-go-lucky slice of life story for a while, where like it's just, you know, the main guy is sort of a prankster, the other guy is very serious, so they've got like their, you know, fire and ice relationship going on, and like none of the other characters are presented as particularly important in this early point. It's like mostly the two main guys and their relationship that's being established. And then there's like crazy action scenes and shit, you know, some of which are pretty cool. There were parts where I was losing attention in this section of the show, where I was like, this isn't as great as those first two episodes were so tight.
They had like crazy fight scenes in them, and they were really interesting.
And there was just always shit happening.
Yeah.
Like the first two episodes are like constant information, constant new stuff going on. Then it kind of slows down, and like, you know, I just wanted to stick with it because I was like, well, you know, I have faith this is going somewhere, and I want to see what happened to him. Like, how did he die? Because we know that the main character must have died at some point, so what happened, you know? And so like there's some, you know, there's some cool moments, but like then we finally get to where we go back to the hometown of the main guy and his like he was adopted by the leader of this clan, and his brother who is the actual son of that leader, was training with him out in the cloud recesses. I had not even realized they were brothers.
Yeah, me neither, honestly.
Like, again, there's a lot of, like, side characters who you don't get the sense are important until this point in the story when suddenly, like, what is actually important starts to become clear. So basically, there's this clan called the Wen clan, who are, like, the most powerful one, and they want to just hostile take over all the other clans. And you have that kind of building up in the background. But then when that element of the show finally takes center stage for the last, like, 6 episodes, that's when it suddenly becomes Game of Thrones. When
it's fucking awesome.
Total shift in tone. It goes from, like... Because there's some of, like, family drama going on where, like, you know, the fact that he's an adoptive son, but, like, the father, you know, trains him he's more hard on his own son, whereas this guy, like, he's adopted, but he's more talented, kind of, and that, like, is a real problem for the mother, who is, like, the mother and father don't really like each other. They were just, like, an arranged marriage, and, like, there's all kinds of...
trying to, like, get their daughter to have an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
That the main character fucked up by, beating somebody up.
Beating up her fiancé because he didn't like her, because he was a fucking weird asshole who was, like, just fucking all kinds of girls or whatever. So, like, that drama kind of comes to the surface. But then once the actual, like, the Wen clan is taking over the world, that is the plot now.
The Fire Nation attacks.
Yeah, when the Fire Nation attacks
Literally.
is when shit gets serious. And, like, there's a couple episodes of building up to it getting more serious where, like, it's kind of more like the Wen clan is bullying them a little bit and kind of fucking with them. And then it starts to get more and more hostile until it leads to, like, a gigantic massacre. And that part is brutal as fuck. It gets real dark real fast. Real fucking violent, rivers of blood, mountains of corpses, lots of crazy magic and shit. And, like, I'll say this, though. This show has a problem with the fact that the magic is so ill-defined and so over the top that, like, whether or not, like, one character or another is going to win or, like, what's going on is really just the whim of the story. Like, there's not enough logic backing it. Because, like, for instance, people can, like, fly on their swords. Like, they can surf on swords through the air.
They can, like, shoot barriers out and stuff.
And it makes no sense because up until that point in the show, there's lots of scenes of, like, characters having to travel by boat. Or, like, you know, not being able to just fly around.
Everybody just float around on their sword.
Right. Like, I know it takes a certain amount of magical energy, I guess, but, like, there's a part where, like, these guys are, like, coming back to their homeland, and then, like, they see that a battle's happening, so they just leave the boats and fly on their swords to the battle. It's like, why don't you just fly around whenever you need to get somewhere? Yeah. And then, like, yeah, it gets really fucking absurd, but, like, at the same time, that means that the battle scenes are badass, because crazy shit happens. And, I don't want to spoil anything, but the last couple episodes, fucking insane. Like, shit gets, because, you know, eventually, basically, right from the start, with our main guy, you know, he's all, hey, everybody, you know... Wouldn't it be a lot easier to deal with all these demons if we just cultivated spite energy? Like, why don't we just cultivate negative feelings? And they're like, that's forbidden and it's gonna fuck you up. And he's like, alright, I guess I won't do it. And, like, he kind of has to do it a couple times to save his life, so you get the sense he's learning how to do it, but he's like, alright, this is a little much to be fucking with, you know.
With this.
But then, of course it gets to a point where he has no recourse but to become the dark god, basically. And when that happens, the horror element comes rushing back into the fold, and the last couple episodes are insane. But, yeah, I mean, that's basically the show. So, like, overall, it's like, the first 2 episodes are really great. I like the dialogue. I like how snippy the characters are, and how many times they're always attacking each other's character, you know? They're always like, you know, fuck you because you said this kind of thing. And the fighting is great. But the midsection's kind of slow. It's hard to take seriously sometimes because the powers are so out of control. but, like, when it's badass, it is so badass.
Oh, yeah.
And the art is so good, and, like, after a year like this, where, like, my biggest complaint about 2018 anime has been background art. Background art is shitty across the board. Even fucking Sangatsu no Lion, which is my favorite anime possibly ever, even that show, occasionally, you look at the ground and you see that little aliasing where they just took a texture and stretched it out across a section of ground, and I go, you
none of that
motherfuckers.
In this show. There's
of that in this
floors,
show.
There's grass, the floors are detailed, there's dirt, there's shit happening everywhere.
Every fucking background is beautiful.
It's great, and the environments are great and well lived in, and you can really tell a lot about, like, the society of the people based on like
so
where they're living in and stuff. And the fucking chicks in the show kick ass.
Yes.
Let me just say that. There's some kick ass girls in the show.
The fucking mom with her whip, badass.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crazy women in this show
it's
too.
Great.
There's a lot of crazy people in this show. Like, everyone's basically either kind of a good guy or a total asshole. Most of them are at least somewhat of a total asshole.
Yeah.
But everybody's very quick to anger and quick to fight. But, like, you know, and there's also a lot of weird shit where, like, if you die, you can technically, like, become a ghost and, like, potentially be brought back. And, like, there's certain things that are very convenient for the story. So, like, yeah, again, it's hard to take it too seriously, but, like, if you want an action thrill ride that will thrill you, just, like, you know, if you get into that lull in the middle of the show and you're kind of losing interest, stick with it. It will get insane.
Yeah.
You will not be disappointed, especially if you like dark, violent, crazy shit. Like, if you're big into that kind of, you know, giant war scenes where you get to see people get really fucked up, then you'll definitely have a good time. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I also gave it an 8. I really liked it.
And yeah, that's it for Moldao Zushi.
Moldao Zushi.
Definitely recommended. And we've only got a couple more fucking shows. Let's finish or fail.
I could have a life.
Let's fucking do
again?
it. We'll be able to live. We'll be able to watch anime that's not from 2018. I can't believe it. Alright, okay, we just watched all of 2B Heroine, and it was an experience. What did you think of this one?
Wow, where do we start? The first episode was really interesting. I really was into the kind of animation style. It was
hype.
It was hype. It seemed like a few people were working on the show, but they all, like, were passionate about it, and, like, they did a lot with what little resources they probably had, and it was like, you know, you kind of want to root for the show because it's like has a lot of passion behind it, and it seems like really unique.
I would say that's true
for the first, like, episode, and then, like, we didn't watch it all at once. We watched the first episode, like,
we watched the first episode back when it came out, and like when that happened. So, first of all, to clarify, this is another Chinese co-production, and technically it's a sequel to 2B Hero. And, like, the characters from 2B Hero are there, but you don't need to have seen that show. They just exist in this universe as well. And if you never heard of 2B Hero, that was, like, just a crazy-ass potty humor, ridiculous comedy from a few years back that had some really great animation in it with a lot of, like, web gen animators in it.
Recommended over this.
It caught a lot of attention from the Sakuga community at the time. This show is... The first episode is basically madness.
Yeah.
And I guess I would describe this as a fake isekai. I mean, ultimately...
Yeah, I mean, she does, like, kind of text, I want to go into another world, and then
the first episode is presented as an isekai show, and, like, sort of the idea is that it's this Chinese girl who isekais into, like, a weird Japanese fantasy world. Because, like, this is a bilingual show. Like, a lot of it is in Chinese, and everything that's set in the real world is in Chinese, but when you're in the fantasy world, it's all in Japanese. And the first episode is basically just this girl goes to this world, and it's batshit insane. Like, the first person she meets is a talking baby wearing a fucking gold diaper, and she's getting, like, attacked by other babies who are assassins, and they use pieces of their clothes to turn into like human weapons, and the human weapons fight, and like it's just like a weird, mostly comedic show where like there's lots of people who die, like lots of babies dying of getting stabbed up the ass and things like that, like weird comedy sensibilities that you would never get in anywhere else.
Nope.
And like the animation, there's fight scenes that are fucking crazy. And granted, I remember at least one cut from the first episode that was like straight up traced from a Yutaka Nakamura cut. So like, I'm sure that the fight animators on the show are legitimately great, but there is some stuff that's like just borrowing from, you know, like just cobbling together elements of other stuff. But I remember being super excited after that first episode because I was like,
it's really hype, and it's like it's nothing you've ever seen before, and you really are like, why is there fucking babies? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And then as the show kind of goes
this
on,
madness?
We learn more about the girl's backstory, and it seems kind of like a drama with how there's like drama between her friends. You're like, there's some kind of like romance, but it's like it's really like weird. The tonal shifts between like.
These Chinese anime tend to have a lot of tonal shifts, but this one, I would say this show is the definition of the word bathos.
Yeah.
If you've ever heard me talk about bathos before, this show takes it to 11 like insincere pathos and absolute like switching between the most absurd humor imaginable and the most like cry porn drama like imaginable. But the funny thing about it is I think that this mostly exists as a social commentary that's just been Huey's lawed up the ass. Are you familiar with Huey's Law?
I've heard about it, yeah.
It's a term that Best Guy ever made up to describe Huey Freeman from the Boondocks. His rule that if you just try to inform people of something, they won't care. You have to make it exciting. So the main thrust of this show is a social commentary about the basically corruption of the industrialization of China. And it was fascinating because it's a type of story that I think was common in American cinema back during the more industrial age, where basically this corporation it's this gigantic factory that gives jobs to almost everybody in the city. It's a
pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, this evil pharmaceutical company is basically, they already are like corrupt and evil, and then an even more corrupt and evil employee like takes over the company and basically kills a bunch of people and fucks everyone over in order to take control.
And because the pharmaceutical company controls everything, like all of the parents are enforcing really like absurd values and expectations on their children, like oh, you have to like be like an A+++ student so you can go to college and get a job
at the factory.
At the factory.
But the factory is also
like they don't want the kids to associate with like, you know, disgraceful members of society because they want to keep their positions and everything.
And particularly what the factory has done is things like basically the scientist who was working there had come up with this like the actual like stuff that they invented is crazy because it's like a potion that will make you remember something forever and then a different potion that will make you forget, both of which are just turned into soft drinks that this company is trying to sell. And this guy like poisons the water in the river in order to like have this hostile takeover, all kinds of crazy shit that obviously has analogs to shit that definitely happens in real life, but like pushed up to kind of an absurd extreme. And it was really interesting because like the imagery of the factory is almost exactly the same as the imagery of factories shown in Shiki Oriori in the little bit of that we watched. And like, so it's obvious that this is something that's going on or has been going on in China over the last couple decades. Is this, you know, it's a country that has rapidly industrialized in the last few decades, and this is obviously like the growing pains of that being represented in art. And I don't know how much of it is like that they're able to sort of escape China by having these Japanese crossovers that are like, I don't know, like, what is the motivation behind all these Chinese co-productions? I'd love to know. There needs to be, like, way more info, way more interviews going on with all of these people about why these shows exist. Because they're fucking fascinating, but ultimately, what you get when you watch this show is the first episode, batshit insanity. The second episode is still batshit insanity, but it's cutting between the girl and her friends, like their past as small children.
A specific like memory that they had before pretty much their lives went like diverged, but it was like that was a metaphor for what was happening in the dream world.
Right. So the isekai world, which is, it turns out to eventually... by the way, if you want to watch this show, based on what we've described, it's only 7 episodes long. So just go ahead and binge it if you like crazy shit. Ultimately, I don't feel that positively about it, is kind of what we're getting to, but like, we're gonna spoil it. So, ultimately, the isekai is a dream world. Although I guess it exists in some fashion, but like, you know, it's all very ethereal. But like, we're cutting between these scenes that are in Chinese of her past and when they were kids, and then scenes in Japanese of the isekai world, and the isekai scenes are all totally insane. And the scenes when they're a kid are played more straight and serious, but... and like there's like very nostalgia tinged, and like you can see the elements of the social commentary even in the as early as episode 2, but the things that are happening in those scenes are not very cut and dry. It's like kind of weird the way that it's presented, like it's leading you into this story. Then you get to episode 3, and we're getting more and more of the backstory scenes and less of the isekai. And like between episodes 3 and 4, not that much happens in the isekai world. And like the stuff that's happening is still, you know, wild and crazy, and there's still cool fight scenes and shit, but you very quickly start to get the feeling that that shit never mattered at all. Mm-hmm. Like everything, all the crazy rules and the wacky things going on in that world, it was all just a metaphor for this girl's life. And like very quickly it becomes just a direct one-to-one metaphor that like, okay, everything happening in this world is just a metaphor, so it's no longer interesting at all. Like, exactly. And then her life is like, at first it seems like a pretty standard teen drama where it's like mostly about her interpersonal relationships with her friends, the stuff they get up to at school. And again, there is still social commentary laced in there, like you said, about them all being held to this like high level of pressure to succeed. But then we finally break away from this this main story where like the isekai element pretty much disappears. Like that world gets like destroyed, and the baby, who is just a representation for like the guy who she's in love with IRL, like his soul from that world enters the body of the dad from To Be Hero. And basically he's just kind of around as a comic relief until the end of the show, when finally what the hell the point of him existing is revealed. But like from this point on, it just goes into the backstory of like this town and all the crazy stuff this pharmaceutical company has done, and like all these crazy murders and shit that have gone on. It gets really dark and like really emotional. And then it becomes, like, again, like a drama about them trying to figure out how they're going to, like, stop this pharmaceutical company before it ruins everyone's lives, essentially. Yeah, so from then on, it's just, like, kind of heads to a pretty normal climax, I guess I would say, like, for this type of show. It has kind of...
win. There's a big boss fight.
Yeah, I mean, there's a cool final battle.
The final battle's lit. Like, it's probably more impressive than anything else that has been in the show.
Right, and it ends with a Anohana-esque...
Yeah, it literally turns into Anohana at the end, but, yeah.
So, and meanwhile...
Did you cry at all?
In this or Anohana? No. But, like, the weirdest...
I cried my fucking eyes out in Anohana.
Possibly the weirdest part is that, like, this show is 7 episodes, but because we were watching this on a site that integrated this special that was made, I guess...
Like, midway through.
I think it was just probably that week there was no episode,
yes,
and it was just
aired this weird thing, but they were, like, spotlighting, like, the production, like,
yeah.
This is from the storyboards, and then this is what they did after that, and then this is how the Japanese version and Chinese version were different.
That was the most interesting part.
Because they completely changed the soundtrack.
Yeah, so, like, they basically keep showing you, like, how they made the big fight from the first episode, but then we find out that the Japanese version has, like, this, like, really, you know, heavy, like, hardcore soundtrack that's, like, just supposed to sound intense, and then the Chinese version has, like, more of a moving, epic soundtrack, but they also edited the scene differently to match the music in each version. So, like, it's slightly different, and it's really interesting. I don't really know if I would say one or the other was better. Like, the Chinese version music was maybe a little more interesting, but, I mean, it's practically the same scene. And then it just, like, starts showing fan art and, like, short interviews with the voice actors and stuff.
Dancing to the the ED or something. It was weird.
It was very fucking strange, because we just thought it was episode 5 at first. So we were just like, what is happening?
And then the next episode is, like, the backstory of, like, the parents and the pharmaceutical company. And it's like, what? Like, the tone shifting is...
And then, like, the thing is
not the same show
that
anymore.
whole backstory, even that, has, like, a gradual... Because first we're learning about the parents when they were a little bit younger, when they were, like, in university, and they're all, like, very wacky kind of caricatures. Like, the main guy is this goofball who literally invents a potion that makes you never forget, like, a special moment. Like, it's really cheesy what the mechanics of the story are, but then, as the episode progresses, it's like people are getting strangled to death. Yeah. And, like, it's really fucking brutal and dark and
the mom
fucked
has
up.
to act, like, mentally handicapped to cover up the fact that she knew what happened.
Yeah, so she's literally been pretending to be insane for, like, 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
fucking crazy.
It's an experience. Like... I gave it a 6 out of 10 ultimately because, like, the social commentary is kind of interesting, but, like, it's not on the nose enough. Like, it doesn't feel like it's an expose on anything. Like, this is a kind of story that's been done before. I feel like I've heard of or seen, like, older American movies from a time where this used to happen here that deal with similar things, you know? And then, like, the action scenes and the stuff in the isekai world, like, when it does comedy, I think the comedy really works, like, because it's so fucking ludicrous, and the imagery, the timing of imagery is great, the action scenes are legitimately a lot of fun, but, like, the actual dramatic story, in spite of the fact that it getting as dark as it did was kind of interesting, where, like, the one of the main characters is strangled to death. Like, that was crazy.
Yeah.
But, like, aside from that, you know, it just felt very, like, it was too melodramatic. Like, I didn't care enough about the characters to really, like, give a shit about their emotions and, like, all of them crying and the fucking swelling music. And it was just, like, I liked it more when it was nonsense. I enjoyed the show the most when I had no idea what was going on, I think.
I kind of feel the same way. If you are somebody who is into Sakuga, maybe check this out, because...
Yeah, I mean, if you're hardcore into, like, just seeing every crazy piece of animation, and I mean, and if you're fascinated by this China stuff...
There's, like, a ton of articles and stuff about this particular production.
Right. Because they also did a lot about To Be Hero back when that came out as well.
Definitely looks interesting, but... like, I don't know, I thought it was pretty cheesy when it tried to say anything, and I also didn't give a fuck about the characters.
I mean, I know that there is a lot of people who should watch this show, because, like, if you like stories that are just, like, bonkers insane, you'll probably get a lot out of this. I mean, there's a bunch of 10 out of 10 reviews on Mal for this, and, like, that doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of movies that are in this vein. Like, I think Chinese and even, like, Korean cinema have a tendency towards this. There's a movie called The Host from Korea that is a similar brand of, like, lots of social commentary and like dark, meaningful scenes interspliced with like wacky comedy, and it's a kaiju movie, you know, at the same time. But like, this is not as good as that, but it is mega interesting. So I would say that there's definitely a crowd who will want to at least have seen this show just to be able to be like, wow, well, that was new, you know. But the way I felt in episode 1, I had been like, anime is saved. Now, granted, I was also baked out of my fucking head when we watched that first episode, but like, by the end of the show, I was like, alright, well, you know, Modao Zushi was more anime is saved than To Be Heroine ended up being, but oh my god, all we have left is Penguin Highway. And also we should probably talk about Aikatsu Friends. Should we just do that right now?
Why not?
Alright, let me cut the clip. Well, Aikatsu Friends. We have not watched all of the episodes that aired in 2018 yet.
Are we through, like, 8?
We're like 8 or 9 episodes in, and I think there were 35 or so that aired last year.
Yeah, the show's still currently airing.
Right, it's still going, and
there's going to be like a second season afterwards, too.
Yeah. So, I didn't want to try to rush through this show for the sake of getting it done for Finish or Fail. Like, I didn't want to have to marathon it all the way through, because I like just watching this while we eat breakfast and stuff.
Yeah, because it's like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Right.
It's, you know.
Like, an episode or 2 a day is just enough, but I love Aikatsu Friends.
It's really adorable.
I love it. It is so adorable. The biggest strength of this show really is art design. Art direction, art design. This is a little girl's show in the vein of things like Precure and all those other, pre-para egg. When I made that stupid Egg Pets video, everybody just literally people just assumed that it was either Precure or Aikatsu, like, because they just don't watch them, and it's like there's a bunch of these, but like Aikatsu Friends might be, as of what we've seen so far, like my favorite one, because so it's an idol show, but it's a show where like idol culture is just a job that you train for in school as early as middle school. And there is an idol track at the middle school. Like, it's a school that's broken into like 2 halves, like normie fuckboys and idol track. And like, if you're on the idol track, your schoolwork entails doing like every type of idol activity. And we're talking like, you know, doing commercials,
doing commercials, doing talk shows, being
in magazines, being a writer, radio personality, like anything you can imagine an idol doing, they do.
It's great. I'd rather watch that than them study for tests and shit.
But what makes this show so great, aside from the character art that we'll get to, but what makes it great is that the 2 main characters are not by any means 2 normal middle school girls. Like, you watch most of these shows and it's like a fairly normal person like develops some kind of superpower or becomes an idol or something.
To project onto,
right?
Like kind of a blank slate character.
These characters are not that. They are characters who you are meant to aspire to. Like, this show is definitely meant to be like, hey, little girls, you can be cool like this. And so the 2 main characters, the main girl, she is on a quest to make 1 million friends.
Yeah.
And she can befriend anybody instantly.
It's presented as a superpower. Like...
Almost, yeah. Like, she has binder after binder of, like, pictures of the friends and, like, little doodles with them, like, and she knows who everybody is.
And she uses it to fucking make sweet deals and stuff, because she has mad connections, and she can always have somebody,
that's how they present friends. Like, they don't present it as, like, oh, I have 1 million friends just because. It's like, no, you need all these friends because they will help you out. Like, you will be able to do more things because...
Connections are a valuable resource, and you gotta protect them with the Aikatsu binder.
And, like, there's a scene in episode, like, 6 or 7... where she's literally, like, has already befriended every person at school. So this is not, like, a slow process for her. It's, like, she's already on, like, binder 30 in her quest to make 1 million friends at the start of the show. So she is a god of making friends. Now, in terms of becoming an idol, she's, she's new to it, and she's usually nervous about things, and, like, has to learn the idol ways. But, like, it's not to say that she is just, like, a nervous person. It's just about this. She, in her everyday life, she's, like, a super outgoing, super personable, lovable character. And then the other main girl, the blue-haired girl,
she's like a fashion model and also a
she's the
clothing
ultimate
designer.
idol.
She's the best. I love her.
She's
designs. Also a PR genius.
She's everything. She in like what she does is she like will go around and just like take pictures of random like colors and textures that she sees in the world.
Taking pictures.
And but like she just takes them so she can use them as a basis for her dresses, and she designs these incredible dresses that she wears on stage and does performances, and and she's also like the biggest fan of this older idol group called
Love Meteor.
Yeah, Love Meteor, who are... We had mistakenly assumed that they were just the main characters of a previous Aikatsu season because we have not watched them, which was not the case, but they're just an older idol group who are, like, the most famous in this world, and she's a huge fan of them, and so she will, like, MC their events and, like, manage things for them as well. And those characters are also very prominent in the story as like the, they're sort of
like
overlooking
superstars.
Yeah, and they're kind of like taking the younger idols under their wing occasionally, like, helping them along on their path. Like the show has so many unique designs, so many unique dresses, so many unique outfits, all of which are fantastic. And, like, the characters, because they, like, make these designs or they, like, care about them, it's like they're intrinsically tied to those characters.
Yeah, they fit their personalities. Yeah. They make sense. And at the end of every single episode, they, like, break down the outfit, like the Kero check.
Yeah, Kero-chan check! It's similar to that. There's also tons of music that is great. And, like, so, okay, because this is structurally similar to a Magical Girl show, basically what each episode will be is that the two main girls have some kind of idol activity that they're going to do, and it's just about them going about it, learning something in the process. But then at the end of each episode, they put on an idol performance, which is often very random. Like, it's just like, okay, the episode's plot is resolved, but I gotta go do an idol show, and then we watch a dance scene. And I'll admit that they do repeat the exact same ones in certain episodes. But
if you watch enough little girl shows, Magical Girl transformations, you're looking at, like, reused footage, like, a third of the episodes. So...
I mean, it's... You have the whole transformation sequence, and then you have the dance sequence, and... Like, sometimes they're just singing either the OP or ED, sometimes they're singing the same song in multiple episodes, and, like, it's literally the same video, like, of the performance. But
there's a lot of... It's not just, like, it's the same one for, like, 4 episodes in a row. It's
it'll be mixed up, and there's a bunch of songs throughout the show, like, there's tons of releases from it. But, like, the performances are awesome! Because, first of all, the lyrics are really good for each of these songs, and so if you're reading the translated lyrics, they usually tie into both the characters and the plot of the episodes in some way. Like, it's almost as if, depending on who the episode is focused on, like, that person's episodes will always somehow relate to the lyrics of their song, because it's generally just, like, what they're about, and so there's that, and then there's the fact that these performances are in CG. It is probably the best character models I've ever seen in anime, are in Aikatsu Friends.
Fucking incredible.
This show is made by Bandai
Mesmerizing.
Namco. Bandai Namco Pictures, they branched off from Sunrise to handle all of their kids' shows, and the character models are just gorgeous. They're animated really well. The environments that they take place in are fun and cool. And the music is good. So I never get sick of them. Like, every time. Even if it's a performance I've seen before, I'm kind of excited to see it again.
The dances are even great. Like, they're better than other idol shows that I've seen.
For sure. And, I mean, just overall, the art and animation quality is high for a kid. Like, we tried watching Kirato Pre-chan, which also aired this year, and like within a few minutes it was just like, man, this does not have the spark.
Watch Aikatsu.
Right. Aikatsu looks so much better. It's so much more interesting. The characters are more interesting, and like and they've introduced other like main characters who are also a lot of fun. All of them are badasses. Like, all the main cast give off the vibe of being badasses. But then the other thing about this show is that, like, its values are weirdly capitalistic. Like, what this show is basically teaching young girls is you are going to be a master of everything, and especially like marketing. Like they understand, this show understands how to be famous for real and is teaching little girls how to actually become famous. It's not bullshit. It's not like candy and rainbows to the top. Like, okay, most idol shows annoy me because they are mostly bullshit. And like, for instance, Love Live or something, where like I don't really buy into the characters, and I don't buy into how they are like getting popular or like why people care or anything like that. I always feel like idol shows are just like trying to present semi-realistic idol stuff, but they're more focused on the emotions of what's going on than they are on like realistically portraying the world. Aikatsu is not realistic at all. No. Everyone in this world is made of bubblegum and sunshine and smiles. However, the lessons that it teaches you about how to be successful are very real. And, like, there's this... So, the last episode we watched was one where Mio, I think is her name, right? Yeah. The blue-haired girl, is advertising these macaroons. Like, she gets hired to be, like, the ad girl for this macaroon commercial. And, like... She wears fucking adorable outfits.
So cute.
And does this folk-style Japanese,
they're
dance.
Like gonna sell the macaroons at convenience stores.
Yeah.
And they're all about like, oh, well, it's gonna be in front of everybody, so they want to make them more approachable.
Yeah.
So they decide to do like a folk dance, like
so,
little kids and old people.
Their logic was that most people think macaroons are like an expensive luxury, and they wanted to diminish that conceit by... So, it's not that they... Like, that's basically lying, right?
It's marketing.
It's
marketing.
The show, literally, they come out and say, and this is presented as a good thing, that she's like, oh yeah, most people think of it as, a higher-end product, so we're trying to, make it appeal to young people and, like little kids and old people by making it more approachable so that it'll sell better. And everyone's like, oh, that's genius. And I'm like... I mean, yeah, it is genius, but it's also, like, isn't that also just evil in some way?
I mean, that's what PR is.
Yeah, and then they go on to, like, the rest of the episode is about them, like, continuing this campaign, and they really successfully sell a ton of macaroons. They make,
a dance out of it. They get everybody from their school to do this dance from the song, and then, like... Mio has a competition where if you, like, win a certain thing in the box, you can, like, go to her concert. Yeah. And then they use that to, like, have the actual end concert. And it's like...
The whole show is
That was, like, the best PR marketing campaign ever.
Yeah.
Like...
This show is literally teaching little girls how to become monstrously popular PR
like a lot of
demons.
These shows are just made to to sell products and like are tied into toy companies, so like
it makes sense.
Like why
it makes sense for them to be this way.
Values,
it's
like,
just being honest,
forward about
it's one great. Of the, like all the other kids shows, it's one where like you can tell what objects in the show are also sold as toys because you see it and it looks like a plastic toy, or like oh, you have to have your Aikatsu album that holds all your Aikatsu cards, which are, like, so you build outfits out of cards. So, like, an outfit will be, like, 4 cards. That's, like, the top, the bottom, the makeup, and the shoes. And, like, so obviously these are probably sold in card sets that you have to collect and then try to put together outfits in your album. And, like, that it's never even really shown. Like, it's in episode 2, there's like a scene where they're like, oh, you're an idol now, here's your book, here's what it does, and then you never see that book again in the show. It just exists to justify the toy. But you know, it's cute.
The main girl carries
looks
hers
great.
around. She says they're her friends.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't noticed, I guess. But yeah, like, I love the characters. I love watching them interact. I love the plots of the individual episodes. There hasn't, out of 8 episodes, there hasn't been one that I didn't enjoy yet. So, yeah, like, I'm going to take my time watching this one. I'm sure it's not going to be like a 10 out of 10. But, if you wanted to watch some real cute shit, you gotta watch Aikatsu. How do you think it compares to, like, Precure so far?
That's a good question. The Precure from last year, I was, like, a really big fan of. I'd say that it probably is stronger than a lot of seasons of Precure.
Yeah.
I don't think the same kind of people, like, would necessarily appreciate, like, idol shows like this the same way they appreciate magical girl shows, because, like, the idol shows are inspired by magical girl shows, but magical girl shows are, like, all about the tropings and everything.
And magical girl shows will have, like, the action. Like, I think a lot of people don't approach these idol shows because the only reason a lot of, like, older guys, for instance, watch Precure is because they want to see Sakuga. Or, like, they want to see the fights and that kind of shit. I want to see the outfits. I want to see the like, the cool dresses and the performances, just because of how great the CG is. Like, and the ED also has phenomenal CG in it. But, like,
I'd say that I care more about the characters in the show than I usually would about, like, Precure characters.
Yeah.
But, like, Precure focuses more on solving, like, problems in their relationships, and then having, like, a fight that, you know, furthers that or exemplifies it, and, like, it's just, like, kind of comparing apples to oranges, but I'd say, like, it's cuter than most Precure shit.
I just think that because Precure usually goes for the more relatable protagonists, I find those less engaging than these characters who are... They're still relatable, but they're, like, again, they're more aspirational. They're more, like, who you should grow up to try to be like. You know?
I also feel like the show is probably for girls who are a little bit younger than Precure would be for. Not that necessarily, like... I just think, like, Precure, like, every girl who's, like, 5 from 12 would probably watch it, and the show's probably more for, like, younger girls.
Younger than 5? I mean, I don't
not
think
not younger than 5, but I mean, like, younger girls who, like, don't really, you know.
It's also for me.
About it.
And oh fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say.
I don't know if that was stupid of you to say, but yeah.
Shit, fuck. I forgot what I wanted to say about Aikatsu. Oh, that I read one negative review of this show on Mal. That was, like, somebody who's a big fan of previous seasons of Aikatsu, who was complaining about, like...
The lack of school scenes?
Lack of school scenes, as that was, like, an Aikatsu tradition. And I was like, I think I know why I'm just now picking up Aikatsu. Because, like, the fact that there's so little of it set in school is part of the appeal to me.
Yeah.
Is that, like... Yeah, the characters are in middle school, but they're in an idol school, and we don't even... Most of it... They take every opportunity to be outside the school doing something more proactive. Doing... acting in a you know, TV show, or, you know, putting on doing some ad, or, you know, working at the shop, because the main girl, she has, like, 4 siblings and her parents and a penguin all working at this little cafe that is adorable. So
and they love tomato, basil, and sandwiches.
Yes, tomato, basil, and cheese sandwiches are very common, and you made one?
I made one.
It was fucking
really
great!
Good.
It was a fucking phenomenal sandwich. Great food recommendation from Aikatsu friends. Alright, well, we've only got one thing left to watch before Finish or Fail is fucking over, and that is Penguin Highway. Let's go do it. Alright, folks, we're here. We've arrived, and we just watched Penguin Highway. And it was fucking whimsical and
It was
nice,
magical. I fucking
charming.
loved it.
You were mega excited for this movie because...
Yeah, I saw like a preview for it and it looked really cute. And I love penguins and Colorito, so I was like all on board for this.
Did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah, definitely. I loved it. I would show this to kids.
This is it's the latest from Studio Colorito, who is probably the most underappreciated animation studio that there is, because they have almost exclusively done shorts. And the guy who directed this movie, Hiroyasu Ishida, if any of you remember a very famous YouTube video called Fumiko's Confession, where this girl confesses her feelings to a boy, he rejects her, and then she, like, runs screaming all through the town, like... All of his work is set in towns that are, like go up a mountain every single time. Everything he directs is a town that goes up a mountain, including this, including Penguin Highway.
This one.
But, like, yeah, so Fumiko's Confession was something he made entirely by himself, got famous on back in 2009.
He was 21.
Yeah, so now he's 31,
so,
I guess.
Yeah. You're a failure if you haven't made this.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, right.
But he also, and like, I never really looked into the directors who work at Studio Colorito because the studio has always been kind of mysterious. But he also directed Poulette's Chair, which is another short that you have definitely seen a bit of if you watch any Noitamina anime, because the animation from it is used in the Noitamina logo now, as of like a few years back. If you watched Sangatsu no Lion, for instance, Poulette no Isu plays at the start of each episode.
We did Fascinating Days.
Yes, Fascinating Days, which is was my favorite Studio Colorito short. Okay, basically this guy did all the good ones, what I'm trying to get to here, because Colorito, all of their stuff is beautiful. All the stuff that he didn't direct is not interesting. Like, I've watched all their shorts, except for I think one or two, but like, the longer they were getting, the less good they had been. Like, they did one that was Taifu no Norida, which you know he still worked on, but as a key animator, but like, or Noruda. That movie, it was like 30 minutes long. It was the longest thing they had done. Totally boring and uninteresting. Felt like a knockoff Makoto Shinkai movie or something. But like, with Penguin Highway, it's just as good as all the other stuff this guy has done. Inventive, fun, scene for scene, just like tons of great moments.
Yeah.
Like, I would say that more so than being a movie with a great story, it's a movie that's like just delightful in the moment-to-moment presentation and the sheer uniqueness of the characters. Because our main character is like a 9-year-old fourth grader who is very intelligent, and very proud of his intelligence. And he basically thinks that he is the greatest.
Yeah, he thinks he's gonna be like the savior of humanity.
Yeah, he's like,
wants to go to space.
He's like, I'm basically as perfect as I can be at this age. Now, granted, he is still humble in the sense that he knows that he's, you know, I'm only 9. I can only be so great.
He's literally counting down the days until he grows up.
Yes,
which I assume is when he turns 18.
3,884 days before he's an adult, according to himself. But yeah, like, he basically considers himself to have, like, maxed out his potential at his current age. He's constantly studying and researching things and just, like, basically learning as much random knowledge as he possibly can and conducting experiments. And then he's got, you know, but he's mostly just a elementary school student. He's surrounded by other kids. You know, there's a fairly generic school bully at his class. There's this girl who's really good at chess who's in love with him. But she's
just Asuka.
A little bit. But his main fixation is on this dentist assistant, I guess, who
the subtitles like say that she's the dentist's wife.
The subtitles we watched for this movie were terrible.
Not the case.
Like, I don't know if there are good subs, because we just clicked the one that was on Nya, and it's not that they're inaccurate, it's that they're just terribly written. Like, this person clearly doesn't know English well enough to write English subtitles. I still appreciate the effort, but somebody needs to proof those things and
definitely
re-release it. But
drinking coffee should not be referred to as he.
Yeah, there's a lot of giving like pronouns to
yes,
objects.
I assume it was probably a Spanish
Oh,
translator.
that could be the case, something like that. But yeah, so the subs were a little confusing, but I'm pretty sure she just works at the dentist's office. But it's this girl who our main boy is like, he's like, my sights are set on this woman. Like he says, you know, I'm gonna grow up to be a great man, and lots of women are gonna want to marry me, but I'm gonna turn them all down because I've already got my sights set. And why does he like this woman?
Titties.
Big old titties. She's got big ass titties, and
a really long neck.
Yeah, and he's real into them big ass titties, and it's fucking great because this movie it's very like cutesy and bright and sunny and family friendly, but it makes no bones about the fact that this kid likes this woman for her tits, and like. It's really funny because he's very, like, stoic and sort of robotically the way he talks. Like, he's brave. He's not, he's by no means, like, a shy boy. But he's just very, like, you know, everything is science in his mind. And he's very proud, and he doesn't like to ever admit when... Not so much... Like, he'll admit when he's wrong. He won't admit when he needs help, basically. Because he wants to be a badass all the time. And this dentist woman... What's great about her is that she is sort of like a free-spirited, snarky, like, she basically makes fun of him, because she's like, you know, she sees his intelligence, but also that he's a kid, and she's constantly reminding him, like, you are a child, like, why are you doing this, you know? So their relationship is really interesting and entertaining, and, like... Throughout the, like, basically from the very beginning of the movie, there's this mystery of a bunch of fucking penguins have shown up in town. What's going on?
The penguins are so adorable.
There's penguins running around being cute. Also, like, seemingly random things are being displaced in location, kind of in the background. And, this woman, the dentist woman, it turns out that there's a lot of really weird mysteries surrounding her, include mysteries even to herself. She does not understand why these things are happening. I don't want to spoil too much, because it's one of those movies where it's not really a matter of, like, a plot twist, as that the whole movie is about learning gradually what's going on, until eventually, we'll just say that the backdrop is in, like, theoretical physics, basically. It's a science movie. At the end of the day, it's sort of a cute sci-fi movie.
It's based on a science fiction book.
Oh, I did not know that. But yeah, like, the way that it's portrayed, like, eventually you kind of realize that the reason that this kid is like this, and also the chess girl, is that they live in a science town. Like, there's a major science university in this town, and assumably both kids' parents work there.
Yeah.
So that's why they are so... Like, whenever the kid is with his dad, the dad, who clearly just, like, enjoys that his son is doing all this research and is just kind of hands-off about it, he's just like, oh, you're researching weird shit? Okay, cool, you know? But his dad is always just, like, positing, like, scientific ideas to him, and, so just... I can explain... Without spoiling anything, I can explain what the science conceit of this movie is just by the example the dad gives, where they're talking about the end of the world, or the end of the universe, basically, and, like, what it could be. Like, what does the universe exist inside of? And then the dad holds up a pocket, like a, you know, an independent pocket, and he says, like, do you think the world could fit inside of this pocket? And the kid's like, I don't know. I don't want to try to answer that, right? And the dad goes, he flips the pocket inside out, and he says, if you think of it this way, the whole world is inside of this pocket right now, you know? That's basically the theme. So, yeah, it's just like a fun side adventure with cute kids, tons of great animation. I don't think that the plot ultimately... I don't think every element of it, like, is... Like, the Jabberwocks are kind of underutilized. I won't spoil what that's about, but, like, they're just kind of these weird monsters that appear at some point and don't really contribute that much to the story.
Are they, like, in Alice in Wonderland?
The Jabberwock is created by Alice Carroll. It was a nonsense poem.
Okay.
Where just, like, every word of it makes no sense, basically. It is called the Jabberwocky. But, yeah. Do you have any additional thoughts on this movie? I basically have summarized everything I had to say.
I love the two characters. I would show this to like kids if I was babysitting a kid.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I have to watch this movie again. It's really fun. Definitely recommend you watch it.
And that means we're done with Finish or Fail. So expect the top 15 anime of 2018 to come soon. And just for some additional notes, like, I've obviously read comments on all these videos. I do think I'll probably return to Lupin Part 5 at some point in the future because people were telling me that the ongoing narrative only lasts like the first 5 episodes, that it just becomes a normal season. So I'm curious about that. But I already am pretty solidified in what my list will be and what will be honorable mentions, so I'm excited to make that.
Hell yeah.
And, now we're going to move on to seasonal bullshit. Oh my god! So yeah, this was an episode full of great stuff that no one's heard of. So I'm just going to call it, like, 2018 anime finale and, like, trick people into learning about a bunch of good shit.
What a crazy long year.
Oh boy.
So much has happened in 2018.
And now it's all over.
It's all over. It's in the past.
Alright, everybody. See you in the next one.